They found something in the Jordan River. Something ancient, something powerful, something that was never meant to rise again. For thousands of years it lay hidden beneath layers of mud and stone waiting. But now the waters are vanishing. The river that once flowed through the heart of Scripture has dropped by nearly 90%, exposing what should have remained buried. Waters turning blood red, sounds coming from beneath the earth that no scientist can explain. The Bible tells us that Jordan has always been a place where heaven meets earth, where God moves, where history shifts, where crossings begin. Jesus said, "When you see all these things, know that it is near." Is God trying to wake us up? Are we witnessing a supernatural sign in real time? The Jordan River is not just any river. It flows through the heart of biblical history, from the slopes of Mount Hermon in the north down through the Sea of Galilee and finally emptying into the Dead Sea. This river has witnessed things no other body of water has seen. It parted for Joshua and the Israelites as they crossed into the Promised Land. The prophet Elijah struck it with his cloak and walked across on dry ground. Naaman the leper dipped himself 7 times in its waters and was healed. And most importantly, this is where John the Baptist baptized Jesus Christ himself. The Jordan River is holy ground. For centuries, pilgrims have come not just to see it, but to feel it, to stand where miracles unfolded, and to remember that what happened here was never ordinary, but something has changed. The river that once flowed strong and deep is disappearing. Year after year, the water levels drop lower. Riverbeds that were once submerged are now cracked and dry, or stretches that required boats to cross can now be walked across on foot. Scientists blame climate change. They point to overuse and drought. They offer explanations rooted in logic and data. But what they cannot explain is what the receding waters have revealed. Ancient structures emerging from the mud, artifacts that predate known civilizations. Sounds that echo from deep beneath the surface with no identifiable source. And that's just the beginning. Locals living near the river have reported strange occurrences. Lights flickering above the water at night, vibrations shaking the ground without any earthquake, a heaviness in the air, a feeling that something is stirring, something ancient, something powerful. Some fell to their knees in prayer, others fled in fear. The scientific community scrambled to investigate. Teams of archaeologists and researchers descended on the region. They expected to find historical relics, pottery, perhaps ancient tools. What they found instead defied everything they thought they knew. The Jordan River is speaking. After thousands of years of silence, it is revealing secrets that were never meant to surface. Secrets that echo the very warnings written long ago in Scripture, pointing toward moments the Bible said would unfold before the return of Jesus Christ. Is this coincidence? Or is something far more significant taking place? The discoveries you are about to see have not been widely reported. The mainstream narrative remains quiet. But those who know the Word, those who recognize the patterns, are beginning to understand. Because God often reveals truth by removing what once covered it. When the waters recede, what is hidden in our lives is also exposed. This is a call to purification before crossing into the next season. The signs are here, and this discovery is unlike anything recorded in modern science. What began beneath the Jordan River has now captured the attention of the entire world, and it connects directly to one of the most mysterious passages in all of Scripture. It started with a sound low, deep, and impossible to ignore. At first, the villagers thought it was thunder, but the sky remained clear. No storms, no shifting weather, no visible cause. And yet the sound returned again and again. A vibration rising from the earth itself, not from above, but from deep beneath the riverbed. Those who had lived beside Jordan for over 50 years were the first to speak. Fishermen, elders, men who knew every movement of the river said they had never heard anything like it. Some described it as a groaning heavy and prolonged as if the ground itself was under pressure. Others said it sounded like a trumpet, distant but unmistakable, echoing through stone and water in a way that felt unnatural. Within days, recordings began to appear online, videos captured in the darkness along the riverbanks. People standing in silence as the sound rolled beneath their feet. The clips spread rapidly across social media, and soon the world was watching. What began as a local mystery became a global question. Scientists arrived quickly, bringing seismic monitors, ground-penetrating radar, and advanced acoustic systems. Their conclusion should have been simple. If the Earth was producing a sound, there had to be movement, but there was none. No earthquakes, no tectonic shifts, no measurable disturbance beneath the surface. The instruments worked perfectly, yet they found nothing. One researcher admitted privately that in decades of study he had never encountered a phenomenon like this. And that is where the explanation changes. Because these events may appear natural, but they refuse to behave naturally. And when nature stops following its own rules, Scripture begins to speak. In Romans 8:22, it is written that the whole creation has been groaning as in the pains of childbirth. Groaning, the same word witnesses used to describe the sounds beneath the Jordan River. Could the earth itself be crying out? Could creation be signaling that something is about to happen, something the Bible warned about long ago? But there is more. In the book of Revelation, trumpets play a central role in the unfolding of the last days. 7 angels, 7 trumpets, each one unleashing events that shake the world. Is it possible that what people are hearing beneath the Jordan River is connected to these prophetic trumpets, a warning that something has begun, that the sequence has already been set in motion? Because throughout Scripture, God has used sound to signal movement. At Mount Sinai, the people trembled as a trumpet grew louder and louder before God revealed himself. Before Jericho fell, trumpets sounded and the walls collapsed. Sound has always come before shifting. Some will dismiss it. They will call it an anomaly, a phenomenon waiting to be explained. But the evidence has already shown that explanation may not come. The sounds continue night after night, growing stronger, spreading further. And the question is no longer whether this is natural. The question is whether we are listening before it becomes undeniable. And while the world debates what is causing these signs, those who know Scripture begin to recognize a pattern. Creation is groaning. The trumpets are beginning to sound. And what was discovered next made those sounds feel like only the beginning. When researchers traced the disturbances to their source, they uncovered something buried deep within the riverbed. Something that had remained hidden for thousands of years. As the waters of the Jordan continued to recede, stretches of land that had not seen light for centuries began to emerge. Cracked mud gave way to ancient stone. Layers of sediment untouched by human hands for millennia slowly revealed what had been preserved beneath them, and within those layers, artifacts. It began with fragments of pottery, small pieces scattered along the dry banks, carefully collected and analyzed. Some dated back to the Bronze Age, others even older. Then came stone tools, flint blades, grinding stones, instruments used by people who lived long before recorded history. But these were only the first signs. Stone tools emerged next. Of flint blades, grinding stones, implements used for hunting and preparing food, the kind of tools used by ancient peoples long before recorded history. Then came the walls, low stone structures buried beneath the mud. At first, researchers thought they were natural rock formations. But closer examination revealed deliberate construction, straight lines, stacked stones, patterns that could only be made by human hands. They had found a settlement, an ancient village hidden beneath the Jordan River for thousands of years, submerged and preserved by the very waters that were now receding. Carbon dating placed the site at nearly 8,000 years old. 8,000 years. Older than the pyramids, older than Stonehenge, older than almost every known civilization. Who were these people? How did their settlement end up beneath the river, and why is it being revealed now? Archaeologists found more than just buildings. They found bones, remnants of daily life, evidence of cooking, of community, of a world that once existed and then suddenly stopped. But the most striking detail was not what they found, but where they found it. This settlement sat directly along the path described in the Bible, the same region where Joshua led the Israelites across the Jordan into the Promised Land. In Joshua chapter 3, the river was at flood stage, impossible to cross. Yet God commanded the priests to step forward carrying the ark, and when their feet touched the water, the flow stopped. The river rose in a heap and the people crossed on dry ground. Scripture records it clearly. The priests stood firm on dry ground in the middle of the Jordan, while all Israel passed by. Dry ground, the same ground now being exposed again. Is this coincidence? Or is something being revealed on purpose? Because this is not just an archaeological discovery. It is a location tied directly to one of the most defining moments in biblical history. A moment where what seemed impossible became real, not through human effort, but through divine intervention. The evidence is no longer abstract. It is physical, tangible, aligned with a record that has been preserved for thousands of years and that forces a realization that is difficult to ignore. The events described in Scripture are not detached from reality. They are rooted in real places, real ground, real history. What God has done before was not symbolic, it was actual. And if that is true, then it raises a question that goes beyond the past. If this ground once opened the way for a people to cross into promise, why is it being revealed again now? But what researchers uncovered next moved far beyond history. It entered a realm that neither archaeology nor science could fully explain. Deeper within the riverbed, past the pottery, the bones, and the remnants of ancient walls, they found something that should not exist, something that seemed to match descriptions preserved only in Scripture. It was small, no larger than a human hand. At first glance, it appeared insignificant, like a fragment of pottery or a worn piece of stone caught between rocks along the river's edge. But when it was carefully lifted and the mud washed away, everything changed. The object was a seal carved from a material unlike anything known in the region. It felt dense, almost metallic, yet unmistakably ancient, as though it had endured thousands of years untouched. Across its surface were markings, precise, deliberate, and completely unrecognizable. Lines and symbols formed a language that did not belong to Hebrew, Aramaic, Greek, or any known script in human history. Experts from around the world were brought in to examine it. Linguists compared the symbols to every recorded writing system. Historians searched for cultural parallels, but nothing matched. The language on the seal seemed to come from a place outside known civilization, either lost beyond recovery or never meant to be understood in the first place. Yet it was not the writing that held everyone's attention. At the center of the seal was an image, a figure with 6 wings carved in remarkable detail despite its size. The figure stood upright, powerful, with a presence that felt intentional. Beneath its feet, a serpent lay coiled, subdued, as if already defeated. 6 wings. That detail alone shifted everything. Because in Isaiah chapter 6, Scripture describes heavenly beings, seraphim standing in the presence of God. Each one had 6 wings. With 2 they covered their face, with 2 they covered their feet, and with 2 they flew. The image on the seal did not resemble mythology or artistic imagination. It matched the description with unsettling precision. And then another connection emerged. In Revelation 20, it speaks of an angel descending from heaven with authority, seizing the dragon, that ancient serpent who is the devil, and binding him. Not in struggle, but in certainty. Not as a future possibility, but as an established act of dominion. Now consider the image again. A 6-winged being, a serpent beneath its feet, not rising, not resisting, already under control. So what exactly was this seal? Historians suggested it may have belonged to an unknown religious group, perhaps one tasked with guarding sacred knowledge. Others believed it could be symbolic, representing ancient beliefs about spiritual authority. But that explanation does not fully account for what was found. Because this is not just an artifact, it is a message carved in stone. A message that aligns too closely with Scripture to be dismissed. A reminder that what appears powerful in the world is already subject to a higher authority. That the struggle between light and darkness is not undecided. And this was only the third discovery. What came next pushed even the most skeptical researchers beyond explanation. But before we go further, take a moment. If what you're hearing is opening your eyes, make sure this message reaches others. Leave a comment and share your thoughts. Are these coincidences or something more? And send this to someone who needs to hear it. Someone searching for answers in a time like this. Because what comes next changes everything. The discoveries take a turn no one was prepared for. Let's continue. Just a few miles downstream from where the seal was uncovered, the river revealed something far more unsettling. The water had pulled back from a wide bend in the Jordan, exposing a stretch of riverbed that had not seen sunlight in millennia. Cracks spread across the dried mud like veins, and within those fractures, bones. At first, the geological team assumed they had uncovered an ancient animal graveyard, perhaps livestock or wild creatures lost to a flood long forgotten. But as the excavation began, it became clear this was no ordinary find. The skeleton was massive, far larger than any known animal native to the region. The bones were thick and dense, fossilized into stone over thousands of years. Layer by layer, more of the structure emerged, a spine lined with jagged ridges, limbs elongated and twisted at unnatural angles, and a skull filled with rows of teeth that matched no known species in the fossil record. When fully uncovered, the creature measured nearly 15 feet in length, its skull alone larger than a man's torso. Bony protrusions extended from its head, resembling horns or some form of natural armor. Scientists were left without answers. The creature did not fit into any recognized category. It was not a dinosaur, not a prehistoric mammal, and not anything documented in modern science. Some proposed it could be a rare mutation, an unknown species from a distant era. Others suggested it might represent something entirely new. But quietly among a few researchers, another possibility began to surface. One not grounded in science, but in Scripture. Genesis chapter 6 describes a time before the flood when the earth had become corrupted. It speaks of a world where boundaries were crossed, where the sons of God took the daughters of men and their offspring became the Nephilim, beings of unnatural origin. And then comes the line that defines that moment. All flesh had corrupted its way upon the earth. Not only humanity, but all living things had been altered, distorted beyond their intended design. The response was decisive. God sent the flood not as random destruction, but as a reset to cleanse what had become unrecognizable. When humanity steps outside God's design, corruption follows. The story of Noah reminds us that God does not ignore distortion forever. He intervenes to restore order, and now, as the Jordan River recedes, what was buried is being revealed. Standing in that dried riverbed, looking at a creature that should not exist, the connection becomes difficult to ignore. Could this be evidence of that corruption? A remnant from a world that was erased. The scientific community rejected the idea immediately, demanding evidence that could be measured and explained. But there was one detail they could not account for. The bones were not scattered as they would be in a natural death. They were arranged, positioned deliberately, as if the creature had been buried with intention. Something had placed it there. Something had hidden it. Not just fragments of history, but pieces of a reality that does not fit within modern understanding. And this creature was not the only one. Further excavations uncovered more bones, more remains, more evidence of creatures that defied explanation, echoes of a world that once stood before judgment fell. And the words of Jesus begin to press in with new weight. As it was in the days of Noah, so it will be at the coming of the Son of Man. Not spoken as metaphor, but as a pattern, a warning, a mirror held up to our time. Are we standing in that same moment again? Are we watching the same sequence unfold just before something irreversible begins? What came next made that question impossible to ignore. It happened without warning. One morning, the Jordan River looked as it always had, murky, slow-moving, familiar. By afternoon, everything changed. The water turned red, not a faint tint, not a temporary discoloration, but a deep, heavy crimson. The color of blood spreading through the river, stretching for miles in both directions. Those who saw it first assumed the worst, an industrial spill, a hidden contamination, something explainable. But every test came back empty. No chemicals, no toxins, no biological cause, nothing. Scientists searched for answers pointing to rare phenomena like red tide. Yet even that explanation collapsed under scrutiny. Red tide does not behave like this, not in a river, not this fast, not without leaving evidence behind. The water had changed and no one could explain why. Within hours, the images spread across the world. Cameras lined the banks, social media flooded with footage. Some dismissed it, others tried to rationalize it, but many recognized something deeper because this had happened before. In Exodus 7, when Pharaoh hardened his heart and refused to listen, Moses stood by the Nile, and at the command of God, the waters were struck and all the waters were turned to blood. Fish died. The river became undrinkable. It was not just a miracle, it was a sign, a warning before judgment. And now, thousands of years later, another river turns red. But this time, it does not stop there. Reports begin to surface across the world. Rivers in distant countries shifting to crimson. Lakes glowing with the same unnatural hue. Rain itself falling red in places untouched by one another. Separate events yet forming a pattern, a convergence. And then another scripture begins to rise, not from the past, but from what was written about the end. In Revelation 16, it speaks of a moment when judgment is poured out, and the sea became like the blood of a dead man, and every living thing in it died. Is this that beginning, or is it the warning that comes before it? Science stands silent. Data offers nothing. Explanations fall apart, but Scripture has never been silent about moments like this. The waters are turning, and something is moving beneath them. Something that should not be there. And what moved beneath those red waters made everything that came before feel like a warning. Not the event itself, because this time it wasn't just a sign, it was something alive. Something that should not exist, something ancient and watching. Before we go further, pause with me for just a moment. If what you're hearing is stirring something in you, don't just scroll past it. Let it stay with you. Let it reach someone else who needs to see this. Tap the like button so this message doesn't get buried. Share it with someone you trust, a friend, your family, someone who still believes there's more to this world than what we're told. And tell me in the comments where you're watching from, because what's happening here, it's not staying in one place. Because what comes next isn't just another discovery, it changes everything. Something was found alive in the Jordan River. Something impossible. Something that has left scientists unsettled and theologians searching deeper into Scripture for answers. The fishermen saw it first. Men who had worked these waters for decades. Men who knew every current, every shadow beneath the surface. They had seen storms rise and waters fall, but nothing like this. It surfaced just after sunset. The river began to churn, waves rolling outward in violent circles. At first they thought it was debris, something carried up from below. But then it moved with intention. A long serpentine shape broke through the red-stained water, its body layered in thick armored scales that caught the last light of day. And then came the eyes glowing fixed watching, not drifting watching. The men didn't wait. They fled, engines roaring, leaving nets behind as if instinct itself was warning them to run. Their story was dismissed at first: fatigue, imagination, fear in the dark. But then more reports came. Travelers along the riverbanks described something moving beneath the surface, too large, too fast, too deliberate. Some said it stretched the length of 3 cars. Others claimed it moved with limbs or fins that folded against its body as it disappeared. Then came the images, blurry, distant, unclear, but enough to unsettle anyone who saw them. Researchers were sent in. Sonar scans detected a massive presence moving through deeper channels of the river. Thermal readings revealed something even more disturbing. This creature carried heat far beyond anything a cold-blooded reptile should produce. Classified footage began to circulate quietly. Leaks suggested a length of over 25 feet in a river that was drying, in waters that should not sustain anything that size. And the question grew heavier. What is this? Science hesitated. Data could not categorize it, biology had no place for it, but scripture had already described something like this. In Job 41, a creature is spoken of not as myth, but as something beyond human control, a being with scales like shields, eyes that shine with unnatural light, a presence that makes the depths boil, a creature without fear, Leviathan. Not a symbol of chaos, but something real enough that only God himself could confront it. And then another voice echoes from Isaiah 27:1, speaking of a day when the Lord will punish Leviathan, the fleeing serpent, Leviathan, the twisting serpent. Not destroy, but punish, meaning it exists, it waits, it is subject but not yet finished. So what are we seeing? A coincidence, an unknown species rising from the depths, or something that has always been there now being revealed? Because if scripture is not just history but pattern, then moments like this are not random. They are reminders. Not everything that inspires fear is beyond control. And not everything rising from the deep has authority. Even this answers to him. Look at the pattern. Not one discovery, not 2, but all of them aligned. From the northern reaches of the Jordan down to the edge of the Dead Sea, every site forms a line. Not scattered, not random, positioned with a precision that feels intentional, as if something long ago marked this river with signs meant to be revealed at an appointed time. Ancient writings spoke of pathways, corridors where heaven and earth seemed to meet, where judgment and mercy passed through the same ground. And the Jordan has always been that place. A boundary, a crossing, a threshold where the invisible touches the visible. Nothing here is unfolding by chance. In Revelation 9:14, there is a moment when what has been held back is released at a river, at a boundary. Not by accident, but by command. Because when God speaks, what is restrained moves, and what is hidden begins to surface. And now along this river, everything is surfacing at once. The artifacts, the sounds, the creatures, the waters themselves. This is not a series of events. This is alignment. Across the world, the same convergence begins to echo. Waters turning red, strange phenomena rising from the earth, signs appearing in the sky, systems, natural, physical, biological, all shifting together. Science reaches for explanations, but it can only isolate pieces. It cannot explain why everything is happening at the same time. But Scripture never separated these things. Jesus said, "When you see all these things, know that it is near." Not one sign, not a single event, all of them together, rising at once like a signal that cannot be ignored. And in Luke 21, he warned that there would be signs in the heavens, distress upon the earth, the sea roaring and fear gripping the hearts of men, not because they do not understand, but because deep down they do. because something greater is unfolding, and none of it moves without him. This is not chaos. This is permission. The same God who parted this river in the days of Joshua, who commanded waters to stand still, who opened the heavens above it at the baptism of his Son. He is not absent now. The river does not reveal unless he allows it. The earth does not tremble unless he speaks. What is being uncovered because the one who sealed it has chosen this moment to open it. And that is what makes this different, because this pattern has happened before. In Genesis 6, the world shifted in ways that defied nature. Boundaries were broken. Creation itself was altered, and yet people continued living as if nothing had changed. Eating, building, planning, ignoring the signs rising all around them until the moment came when it could no longer be ignored. Jesus warned that it would happen again. As it was in the days of Noah, so it will be. So the question is no longer whether these things are connected. The question is whether we are watching closely enough to recognize who is behind them. Because nothing opens unless he opens it, and nothing moves without his command. The signs are not random. They never were. In Scripture, warnings are never sent without purpose, and they are never sent too late. They come in a window, a space of mercy before something shifts beyond return, and that is where we are now. Not at the end, but at the edge of it. A moment where awareness matters more than explanation, where readiness matters more than curiosity. Jesus spoke of this with clarity, not to create fear, but to awaken attention. He said, "When these things begin to take place, stand up and lift up your heads, because your redemption is drawing near." Not panic, not confusion, but recognition. A call to see what others overlook. And then he added another command, simple but weighty. Be on guard. Be alert. You do not know when that time will come. Not a suggestion, but a posture. Stay awake. Stay aware. Stay ready. Because the danger is not the signs themselves, the danger is missing them. Scripture shows this pattern again and again. In the days of Noah, the warning was given long before the flood came. The ark stood in plain sight. The message was clear. Yet people continued as normal, assuming there was still time, assuming nothing would change until it did. That same voice still speaks now. Not through noise, but through alignment. Through patterns, through moments like these. This is not about predicting a date. It is not about chasing fear. It is about preparation. About turning inward, examining the heart, realigning with what is true before the moment passes. Because the window of grace does not stay open forever. So let me ask you, not as a theory, but as something personal. If these signs are real, if they are connected, if they are exactly what Scripture said would come, then where do you stand? Are you watching? Or are you waiting for certainty that may never come? If this message has stayed with you, don't let it stop here. Share it with someone who needs to hear it. Leave a comment and tell me what you're seeing, what you're feeling, where you're watching from. And if this stirred something deeper in you, stay with this channel, because we're not done yet. Thank you for staying until this moment, and whatever comes next, stay awake.